Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of our viewers don't subscribe? If you enjoy this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. We're targeting 500 likes on this one. Let's dive into today's tale. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd sit down and tell a story like this. But here I am, living through something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. My name's Daniel, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was rock solid. I'm not saying things were perfect, but I believed in what I had. I believed in my marriage, my wife, and the life we'd built together. Turns out, belief doesn't mean much when reality's playing a different game behind your back. Emily and I had been married for 10 years. We met in college, both studying business at the University of Michigan. She had this quiet, graceful confidence that drew people to her. She wasn't loud, but she didn't need to be. One smile, and you just felt like she saw you. That's what got me, I think. The feeling that she understood me in a way no one else did. We got married the summer after graduation. Small ceremony in her parents' backyard. Just close friends and family. I remember standing under those string lights strung up in the trees, thinking that this was it. I'd found my person, and for a long time, it felt like I had. The first few years of our marriage were exactly what you'd expect from two young professionals trying to build a future. We both got jobs in Detroit, me in marketing, her in finance. We rented a modest apartment downtown, spent weekends exploring the city, and made the kind of memories that become the glue in a relationship. Eventually, we bought a house in the suburbs, a nice little place on a quiet street with a decent yard and good neighbors. That's where I thought we'd raise our kids. We never got to that part, though. That dream stayed on the shelf while we focused on careers. Emily always said we'd have kids once we hit a certain level of stability. I didn't argue. I was ambitious too. But in hindsight, I think I was waiting for something she'd already taken off the table, quietly, without telling me. Things changed when Emily got a new job. She was promoted to a senior analyst role at a consulting firm. Double her salary, bigger office, more travel. I was proud of her. She deserved it. I told her so every chance I got. What I didn't realize was that this promotion would also put her in closer contact with someone who'd turned my whole world upside down. His name was Adam. He was a partner at her firm. I remember the first time I met him. Emily invited him and a few others over for a small dinner party. He was charming, the kind of guy who knows exactly what to say to make people like him. Strong handshake, well-dressed, always looking you in the eye like he had nothing to hide. That night, he brought a bottle of wine and talked about some trip he'd taken to Europe. He laughed at my jokes, complimented our house, and made a point to say how lucky I was to be married to someone like Emily. Looking back, that last part feels like foreshadowing. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. I trusted my wife. I trusted people, maybe more than I should have. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't show up waving a flag. It slips in through the cracks when you're not looking. Over the next few months, Emily's schedule got heavier. More late nights, more weekend trips. I didn't push back. I wanted to support her. We'd always had an understanding that we'd chase our goals together. So when she said she had to fly out for another client pitch or stay late for another meeting, I nodded and kissed her goodbye. But then things started to feel off. Little things. She stopped leaving her phone around like she used to. Password changed. Always flipped face down. She started being more distracted when we talked, like her mind was somewhere else. I tried to convince myself it was just work stress. Everyone goes through phases, right? Still, there was this gnawing feeling in my gut that wouldn't go away. One night, she left her laptop open while she took a shower. I didn't mean to snoop, I swear I didn't. But the screen lit up with a message notification, and I saw his name. Adam. It wasn't a work message. It was personal. It said something like, "I miss the way you smiled this morning. Can't stop thinking about it." That was the first real crack. I didn't say anything right then. I sat there staring at that message, hoping, somehow, that there was a reasonable explanation. But deep down, I knew. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. Checking her phone when she was asleep, watching how she responded to texts, taking mental notes on her behavior. I hated doing it. I felt sick. But I needed to know. One Saturday, she told me she had to go into the office for a last-minute presentation. I offered to drive her. She said no, said she'd be quick. So after she left, I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed her. She didn't go to the office, she went to a boutique hotel downtown. I watched her meet him in the lobby. They hugged, too familiar to be coworkers. She looked happy, free, like someone I hadn't seen in a long time. I sat in my car for nearly an hour trying to wrap my head around what I was seeing. Part of me wanted to burst in, to confront them right there. But another part, the bigger part, told me not to. Not yet. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting every mistake I might have made, wondering if I'd missed something important, if I'd stopped being the man she wanted. But in the end, I came to a different conclusion. She made a choice. She chose to step outside our marriage. Not once, not by accident. She made it a pattern, a second life, and she thought I was too blind to notice. The next morning, I acted normal, made breakfast, asked about her day. She lied to my face with the same ease she used to say, "I love you." And that's when I knew. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, I had something else in mind. Revenge wasn't a word I used to believe in. It sounded dramatic, bitter. But when someone rips your life apart and doesn't even have the decency to admit it, something changes inside you. You stop wanting justice and start craving clarity. Control. You want to watch the person who betrayed you realize what they lost. Not in anger, but with precision. So I made a plan. Not the kind where you scream and throw things. A patient plan. One that would take time, but would leave no doubt about what she'd done. I started collecting evidence, quietly. Emails, messages, call logs. Every lie she told became a tool in my arsenal. I wasn't going to let her leave me ruined. No, I was going to let her walk herself into the truth. I just had to wait for the right moment, and when it came, she would never forget it. I spent the next few weeks living a double life. On the outside, I was still the same husband, supportive, attentive, and understanding. But behind the curtain, I was a man sharpening his resolve. I didn't want to hurt Emily out of spite. I wanted her to see the full weight of her decisions. I wanted her to understand that betrayal doesn't just dissolve in silence. It echoes. After discovering the affair, I knew I couldn't let emotions control my next move. I needed clarity, documentation, and patience. I started by buying a second phone. I used it to record everything. Voice memos of conversations we had. Screenshots of texts she sent when she thought I wasn't looking. I installed a small voice recorder in her car and a GPS tracker she'd never notice. Every late-night trip, every lunch break that lasted a little too long, every emergency meeting, I logged it all. I didn't confront Adam either, not yet. I watched him like a hawk, followed his social media. I even attended one of his firm's public seminars, sitting in the back row, pretending to be just another guy curious about business consulting. It was surreal sitting there watching him command a room, while I knew what he was really doing behind closed doors. That calm, polished facade was just a mask. Underneath, he was a thief, stealing time, trust, and the truth from a man he shook hands with. But I stayed silent. You learn a lot about people when you stop trying to protect them. Emily began to grow more distant. She'd come home and talk less. Sometimes she'd sit in the living room, staring at her phone, texting, smiling slightly when she thought I wasn't looking. I played my role well, never angry, never suspicious. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd lie smoothly, like it was second nature. And maybe by then, it was. Then came the turning point. One Thursday evening, she came home unusually late, said she'd gone out with coworkers for drinks after work. I smiled, nodded, offered to heat up dinner. But what she didn't know was that I'd already seen her that night through a pair of binoculars from my car, parked across the street from the same hotel they'd met at before. I saw them walk in. I waited 3 hours. I saw them walk out. She looked happy, not guilty, just happy. That night, after she fell asleep, I made my move. I backed up all the data I'd collected. Every photo, message, recording, securely stored on a drive, encrypted, password protected. I compiled a timeline. Where she was, who she was with, how often. I even captured a short video of them walking into the hotel, clear enough to leave no doubt. And then I wrote a letter. Not to her, not yet. To her parents. You see, Emily's parents adored me. They considered me a second son. We'd spent holidays together, celebrated birthdays, gone on family trips. I wasn't going to embarrass her publicly, but I needed them to know who their daughter had become. I mailed it with no return address, but I knew they'd figure it out. Inside the envelope, I included a note simply saying, "You deserve the truth." I did too. Then I reached out to Adam's wife. That's right, he was married too. Her name was Jennifer, and they had 2 kids. I found her Instagram and sent her an anonymous message. I didn't include everything, just enough. A few screenshots, a couple of dates. Just a push in the right direction. I knew curiosity would take care of the rest. But I wasn't done yet. I started preparing for my exit financially and emotionally. I met with a lawyer, quietly, professionally. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, I wasn't the one who got blindsided. I updated my will, shifted some funds, opened a new account. I even rented a small apartment under a friend's name just in case I needed to leave quickly. Still, I waited. The goal wasn't just to catch her. It was to let her build her own trap, one lie at a time. And she did. She'd text me sweet messages while sitting in the same restaurant as Adam. She'd fake being tired from work when I knew she'd spent the afternoon with him. I logged it all. Then, like a crack in a dam, things started to unravel. Her parents called her out of the blue, asking if she was happy. She brushed it off, but I could see the worry creeping into her face. Her mom started calling more often. I could hear the concern in her voice when she talked to me, like she was trying to understand something without asking directly. Jennifer, Adam's wife, posted a cryptic message on Facebook. Lies have short legs. A few friends commented asking if everything was okay. She never responded. I knew the storm was coming. And then it hit. One evening, after dinner, Emily got a call. I watched her face pale as she listened. She stepped out of the room, but I followed quietly, standing just out of sight. It was Jennifer. I could only hear Emily's end of the call, but I heard the panic in her voice. She kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," and "You have the wrong idea." But her voice cracked halfway through. She knew the game was over. When she came back inside, I pretended not to notice. She sat on the edge of the couch, staring into space like she was trying to remember how to breathe. That night, she didn't sleep. Neither did I. By morning, she was trying to act normal again. But the tension was thick. And then, the final blow. I walked into the kitchen, placed the flash drive on the table, and said, "You should watch that." She froze. Her hand was halfway to the coffee pot. I didn't say another word. I turned around, walked out of the house, and went straight to the apartment I'd prepared weeks ago. I didn't text, didn't call. I let silence do the work. The next day, she showed up at the office. My receptionist told her I was busy. She waited 2 hours. I didn't come out. That weekend, I sent her divorce papers. I didn't want to hear apologies. I didn't want explanations. I wanted freedom. But revenge wasn't just about leaving. It was about making sure she never forgot what she threw away. That came next. The day the divorce papers landed in her hands was the day her carefully constructed world began to fracture. I had expected some resistance, tears maybe, or denial. But she signed them faster than I anticipated. I don't know if it was guilt, shock, or fear. Maybe all three. She sent a short message that night. "Can we please talk?" I never replied. There was nothing left to say. Over the next few weeks, the silence between us grew louder than any argument ever could. She moved in with her sister temporarily, or at least that's what I heard. I didn't ask. I didn't care. The house was mine. I made sure of that. I had worked too hard for that home, and I wasn't about to let the person who shattered my trust also walk away with the roof over my head. Her parents called me. Her mom, holding back tears, told me they were ashamed. I didn't gloat. I told her that Emily had made choices, and so had I. Her father offered to help mediate, to talk to her. I said it was too late. Respectfully, but firmly. The damage was done. This wasn't something that could be patched up with apologies or family dinners. Some wounds need to scar to remind you of the lesson. Meanwhile, I heard through quiet whispers that Adam's wife, Jennifer, had kicked him out. Apparently, she found more than I sent. Texts, receipts, photos. The whole history of his lies was right there in the cloud. He tried to apologize, tried to spin the story, but she wasn't buying it. They had 2 kids. He lost them in a matter of weeks. Funny how truth comes out when you least expect it. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. Not until I saw the real fallout. I wasn't looking for chaos or violence. I'm not that kind of man. I just wanted clarity, consequences, the kind that linger. Emily had to face everyone in our circle, friends, coworkers, neighbors. No matter how carefully you try to bury the truth, people talk. It started as rumors, then slow confirmations. People noticed how she wasn't wearing her ring, how I wasn't at her side anymore. Eventually, they started asking questions, and she had no script left. She'd been the one everyone admired, the polished, driven woman with the perfect marriage. And then the mask fell off. Slowly, her friends drifted. Even the ones who didn't take sides suddenly became too busy to call her back. She was left in the quiet mess she created. And Adam? He didn't survive the fallout at work either. Turns out, fraternizing with subordinates, especially while married and in a leadership role, doesn't sit well with company policy. Once HR got wind of it, probably from Jennifer or one of Emily's concerned colleagues, his days were numbered. They let him go under the guise of restructuring. But we all knew what that meant. His spotless reputation, the years of networking and climbing, gone in a flash. But here's the part that surprised me the most. Even after all that, Emily still tried to fix it. She started emailing me long, emotional letters about how she made a mistake, how she let stress and pressure blind her, how she missed me, how she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. I didn't respond. Every message was another nail in the coffin. She had already buried us. Now she was just writing eulogies. She asked if I'd consider couples therapy. She said she wasn't seeing Adam anymore, that she wanted to start over, but I wasn't interested in a reset. I didn't want to rebuild something that had already burned to the ground. My final act of closure came one afternoon when I ran into her at the grocery store. I wasn't expecting it. We locked eyes in the cereal aisle like something out of a bad movie. She looked tired, pale. Not in the way someone looks when they're sick, but in the way someone looks when life has drained the color out of them. She smiled weakly. I didn't smile back. She walked up slowly and said, "You look good." I said, "I feel good." And I did. For the first time in a long while, I felt clear. I felt strong. She nodded and said, "I miss you." I looked her in the eye and replied, "I don't." That was it. No shouting, no drama, just truth. The kind that cuts clean without needing to be cruel. She stood there, looking at me like she wanted to say more, but she didn't. She walked away. That night, I sat on my porch, sipping a cup of coffee, listening to the wind move through the trees. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. That's the thing about betrayal. Once you survive it, once you crawl through the wreckage and come out the other side, you realize that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering who you are, what you deserve, and never settling for less again. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. I went hiking more, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. I even signed up for a community cooking class, just for the fun of it. There was a woman there, kind eyes, sharp wit. We talked after class a few times, just as friends. I wasn't rushing into anything. I didn't need to. For the first time in a long time, I was okay being alone. Sometimes, revenge isn't about ruining someone else's life. It's about rebuilding your own so well that the person who broke you can't help but feel the weight of what they lost. Emily still tries now and then. A message on my birthday. A comment on an old social media post. I ignore them. I don't hate her. I just don't need her. Because in the end, she gave me a gift she didn't intend, a clean slate. And I used it well.